The mockery at the Galactic Council. The Galactic Council chamber floated in the middle of nothing, an immense station of glass and silver that glittered against the endless dark. Inside, 1,000 alien delegates sat in tiered seats, each representing a world, a species, or an empire that had survived long enough to matter. Today, it was humanity's turn to be mocked. Ambassador Karen Wu stood at the center dais, hands folded behind her back, her expression calm but her eyes sharp. The translator sphere above her head hummed quietly, turning the alien languages around her into English. "And these are the apex predators of my home world," she finished, as the last hologram of a great white shark dissolved in the air above the dais. For a moment, there was silence. Then laughter. Not the kind of polite chuckle that came from amusement. No, this was the laughter of superiority. Deep, condescending, unrestrained. "Is this a joke?" rasped General Scarvas, the hulking reptilian delegate of the Kharak Dominion. His armor plates clinked as he leaned forward, eyes gleaming like molten gold. "That fish is one of your fiercest predators." Karen didn't flinch. "One of them," she said evenly. "We also have bears, lions, crocodiles. Large, slow, predictable." Scarvas cut her off with a slash of his claw. "Your predators are cumbersome. On Kharak, even our prey animals can kill those beasts. You humans are prey yourselves, fragile things that hide behind tools." Around the chamber, other delegates muttered in agreement. The insectoid Zirka clicked their mandibles in disdain. The crystalline Arvathi pulsed a dull, unimpressed red. Karen kept her face neutral, though she could feel the heat of her rising temper. Fragile, perhaps, but never to be underestimated. "Oh," Scarvas' tail lashed once. "Then prove it. Match one of your so-called predators against our Gorthrex beast in the great arena. We will see if your Earth has anything worthy of the title Apex." The chamber buzzed with anticipation. The great arena, an ancient Kharak tradition, was infamous across the galaxy. Species sent their strongest champions, their deadliest creatures, to fight for honor before tens of thousands of roaring spectators. Most battles ended quickly. Few opponents ever survived the Gorthrex. Karen tilted her head slightly. "If I accept," she said, "and Earth wins, then," Scarva said with a slow, mocking smile, "I will concede that your species is not entirely laughable. But if you lose, you will accept the Council's verdict that humans are weaklings who should stay in the safety of their little homeworld." A trap. That was obvious. He wanted to humiliate humanity in front of the Council. And the truth was, Karen knew the outcome would be bad if they tried to pit a lion or a bear against something bred on a death world like Kharak. But she had something else in mind. She let the silence stretch a few beats too long, watching Scarvas' smugness grow. Then she smiled, the kind of small, sharp smile that said she'd already made up her mind. "Fine," she said. "We accept, but we won't be sending a lion or a bear. We'll be sending something much smaller." A ripple of curiosity moved through the chamber. Scarvas blinked, then scoffed. "Smaller? Will you send a rabbit, human?" Karen leaned forward just slightly, locking eyes with him. "No, we'll send a honey badger." For half a second, the Council fell utterly silent. Not because they knew what it was, but because the term translated oddly. In the Zirka tongue, it came across as sweet weasel. In the Arvathi language, it rendered as gentle, digging animal. Then the laughter began. It rolled across the chamber like a wave, booming, chittering, hissing. Delegates clutched their sides. Even a normally solemn Arvathi pulsed bright orange with mirth. Scarvas leaned back in his seat, laughing so hard that his fangs glinted under the chamber lights. "You will send a small mammal to fight the Gorthrex? This will be the shortest match in the history of the arena." Karen didn't laugh. She only said, "Make the arrangements. The fight will be in 1 week." Back aboard the human embassy ship, Karen stepped into the comm room, locking the door behind her. The view screen flickered to life, showing a grizzled man in khaki with a sunburnt face. "Karen," he greeted cautiously, "you only call when something's gone very, very wrong." "Not wrong," she said, "but it's going to be interesting. I need an animal transported to the Kharak homeworld within 6 days. Alive." He raised an eyebrow. What animal? A honey badger. The man paused, then laughed once. Not mockery, but recognition. Oh, I get it. You're not trying to win. You're trying to make a point. I'm trying to make the point, she said. And I want Ratel, the female from Kruger Reserve, the one that survived the leopard attack and stole food from hyenas. That's one mean little lady, the man said approvingly. She'll need a secure cage and a good reason to be cranky. I'll leave that to you. Just make sure she's irritable, and tell the handlers to feed her lightly on the way. I want her hungry. 1 week later, across the galaxy, posters began appearing in alien cities. The Great Arena Presence. The Gorthrex Beast versus the Honey Beast of Earth. The alien public howled with laughter at the title, but the humans who knew smiled quietly. Because there's one truth about honey badgers that the rest of the galaxy was about to learn the hard way. They simply do not care. Arena of the Stars. The Kharak Great Arena was a monument to violence. Carved from black basalt and rimmed with glowing force field pylons, it could seat 100,000 spectators. The air above the central pit shimmered under the heat of the lights, while banners from a dozen alien clans hung from the walls like the trophies of old battles. Ambassador Karen Wu stood in the human delegation box, high above the sand. She could feel the vibration of the crowd through the floor. To her left, human military attaché Captain Darius Holt adjusted the zoom on his field binoculars. To her right, 2 Kharak guards stood with arms folded, pretending not to eavesdrop. They're expecting a slaughter, Darius murmured. Karen kept her voice low. They're going to get one. The Gorthrex Beast was released first. The gate on the far side of the arena clanged open, and the creature stalked out into the light. It was monstrous, over 4 meters tall at the shoulder, scales like armored plates, and claws that scraped furrows into the stone. Blue bioluminescent veins pulsed beneath its skin, glowing brighter as it growled. Its head was wedge-shaped, with too many teeth for its mouth to contain, and its tail ended in a serrated, mace-like growth. The crowd erupted in roars, hisses, and clicks. Many of them were chanting the beast's name over and over, until it became a pounding rhythm. The announcer's voice boomed in half a dozen languages. Behold, the champion of the Kharak, the Gorthrex Beast. The Gorthrex bellowed in answer, a sound so deep it rattled Karen's ribcage. Then it turned its attention toward the other gate. The honey badger's entrance was less theatrical. The smaller gate hissed open, and from the shadows emerged a low, stocky figure, its black and white coat stark under the arena lights. Ratel moved with a rolling gait, head low, eyes locked on the giant reptilian across from her. The alien crowd burst into laughter. Some literally fell over in their seats. The small aliens of the third tier, thin, big-eyed with red crests, pointed and made whistling sounds of amusement. In a VIP box opposite Karen, General Scarvos smirked like a man already savoring victory. And from the humans, the honey beast, the announcer declared, pausing in disbelief before the title, as if unsure whether it was a joke. Ratel ignored it all. She sniffed the sand, then bared her teeth. The opening signal was a sharp, echoing horn blast. The Gorthrex moved instantly, charging with ground-shaking steps, its claws tearing furrows through the sand. Ratel didn't flinch. At the last possible moment, she sidestepped with deceptive speed, whipping around to bite the creature's rear leg. The audience gasped as the Gorthrex stumbled, snarling and kicking, but Ratel held on until a shake sent her tumbling across the arena. She hit the ground, rolled, and came up running, straight back toward the towering monster. "This is insane," one of the alien commentators muttered over the broadcast channel. "It's attacking instead of fleeing." The Gorthrex turned and swiped, claws slicing through the air. The honey badger ducked under them, latched onto its forearm, and began tearing at the scales with sharp teeth and claws. The crowd's laughter faltered as flecks of blue blood spattered the sand. In a human delegation box, Darius grinned. "That's right, girl. Show them what you've got." Karen said nothing, her eyes locked on the fight. The Gorthrex roared, lifted its arm, and slammed Ratel into the ground hard enough to leave a dent in the sand. The little mammal's body went limp for half a second. The crowd cheered, certain it was over. Then Ratel got up, slowly, deliberately. She shook herself, as if annoyed, and hissed. The laughter stopped entirely. This time, she went for the legs again, circling low and fast. The Gorthrex swung its tail, trying to smash her, but she ducked under it and went straight for the joint at the base. Her claws dug in, ripping through the softer membrane there. Blue blood spurted in an arc. The Gorthrex howled and spun, but Ratel used the momentum to climb onto its back. Now she was in the danger zone, directly under the reach of those massive claws, but she moved with reckless determination, tearing at the gaps between armor plates. "Do you see this?" one alien commentator shouted. "It's not trying to survive, it's trying to win." In the VIP box, Scarvas' smile had vanished. His golden eyes tracked every move with dawning concern. The Gorthrex finally managed to hook a claw under Ratel and fling her across the arena. She hit the wall hard. The crowd let out a unified OH of impact. For a moment, she lay there, sides heaving. Karen felt her stomach knot, but then Ratel rolled onto her feet again. Not fast this time. Slow. Stalking. Her small frame low to the ground, every muscle taut. The Gorthrex bared its teeth and lowered its head, preparing for a final charge. Up in a human box, Darius whispered, "They still don't get it." Karen's voice was soft, almost amused. "They're about to." The chapter ends here with the tension just before the turning point of the fight, setting up Chapter 3 for the rampage and shock factor. The rampage. The Gorthrex came in low, its talons digging deep furrows through the sand. Each step shook the arena floor, sending vibrations up through the human delegation's boots. The blue glow beneath its scales pulsed like a heartbeat, fast, eager, certain of the kill. Ratel didn't move until the last possible instant. When she did, it was like a switch flipping. She darted sideways, the reptile's massive claws missing by inches. The crowd roared, but their voices were tinged with disbelief now, the laughter from earlier replaced with uneasy murmurs. The honey badger's eyes locked on a fresh target, the Gorthrex's face. She launched herself straight at its head, claws scrabbling for purchase on the armored snout. The beast jerked back, but she was already clinging to the ridge above its left eye. Then her teeth sank in. The sound was wet and sharp. Blue blood sprayed in a fine mist. The Gorthrex howled, the note so high and desperate it almost didn't sound dangerous anymore. From the human box, Darius muttered, "There it is." Karen's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Now it's personal." The Gorthrex shook its head violently, trying to fling the attacker free, but Ratel tightened her grip, digging all four claws into flesh. She worried the wound like a terrier with a rat, tearing in deeper and deeper until one of the creature's eyes ruptured with a sickening pop. The crowd's roar fractured into chaos. Some aliens shouted in shock, others cheered in raw admiration. The Kharak commentators were yelling over one another, unable to believe what they were seeing. The Gorthrex staggered backward, blind on one side. But it wasn't beaten, not yet. With a sudden, enraged bellow, it slammed itself sideways into the arena wall, smashing Ratel between its skull and the black basalt. Dust and fragments of stone rained down. The audience held its collective breath. When the beast stepped back, Ratel fell to the sand. For an instant, it looked like she might not rise this time. Her sides heaved, one leg dragging slightly. But then she stood, shook herself, snarled. The sound was small compared to the Gorthrex's roars, but it carried a dry, venomous defiance that made even the front rows of the alien crowd lean back. The Gorthrex charged again, but Ratel didn't run. She met the momentum head-on, darting low under the beast's chest and latching onto its throat. Her claws shredded at the soft skin between plates of armor. The Gorthrex thrashed, but the more it struggled, the deeper the wounds became. Blue blood poured freely now, staining the pale fur of her head and chest until she looked like she'd been painted for war. The force field pylons around the arena flared as the beast crashed against them, trying to dislodge her. The crowd's noise became a single undulating roar. Fear, awe, disbelief mixing into one. Karen glanced at Scarvas's box. The warlord's claws gripped the railing so tightly the metal was starting to bend. His tail twitched a slow, anxious rhythm. Ratel climbed higher, using her claws to rip open the wound she'd started. Then, in one brutal motion, she locked her jaws around the Gorthrex's windpipe and pulled. The beast's bellow turned into a choking gurgle. It collapsed to its knees, shuddering, tail lashing the sand in dying spasms. Still, Ratel didn't let go. The arena's announcer hesitated. Protocol dictated that the fight ended when one combatant could no longer continue. But Ratel clearly didn't care about protocol. She tore at the Gorthrex's throat until the blue glow beneath its scales faded entirely. Silence fell, the first true silence since the fight began. Tens of thousands of aliens stared at the small, blood-drenched mammal standing over the corpse of their champion. Ratel's chest heaved as she turned in a slow circle, glaring at the crowd as if daring anyone else to try their luck. A low voice broke the stillness. One of the Kharak commentators, sounding almost reverent, it doesn't stop, even when the enemy is dead. Another alien whispered, "That's not a predator, that's a demon." In the human delegation box, Darius finally exhaled. "I think they get it now." Karen's eyes stayed on Ratel. "No," she said softly. "They've only begun to understand." Trainers entered the arena cautiously, wearing full armor and carrying stun poles. Ratel ignored them until the first got too close. She whirled, snapping the end of the pole clean off with one bite. It took a full minute and 3 tranquilizer darts to finally get her into the containment cage. By then, the alien crowd had begun to chant something new. Not Gorthrex, not Kharak, but Honey Beast. The words rolled like thunder through the arena, the crowd's voices carrying an odd mixture of fear and admiration. In the VIP box, Scarvas didn't join the chant. He didn't speak at all until Karen looked directly at him across the pit. His jaw worked once before he said, in a voice low enough only nearby delegates could hear, "I concede." Karen allowed herself the smallest nod. Wise choice. As the cage was hauled away and the arena floor crews began clearing the corpse, alien spectators leaned toward one another, speaking quickly in hushed tones. News feeds would beam this fight to every corner of the galaxy within the hour. The legend had just begun, and Ratel, the honey badger from Earth, had no idea that she'd just become the most feared predator in known space. A reputation earned. By the time the human delegation's shuttle left the Kharak atmosphere, the footage of the fight had already spread across the galactic net. It played on endless loops in bars, markets, and military outposts. The tiny, black and white mammal clinging to the Gorthrex's face, tearing into its eye. The moment she rose from the sand after being slammed into the wall. The final, relentless ripping of the throat. There were no edits. The galaxy didn't want edits. It wanted proof. In the quiet of the human diplomatic vessel's lounge, Captain Darius Holt scrolled through news feeds on a hollow slab. Alien commentators were trying and failing to explain what they'd seen. Honey Beast tops trending terms in 15 systems, he said, smirking. Merchandise already in production. Someone selling plush versions with bloodstains. Karen Wu sipped her tea. Of course they are. Nothing makes you famous like terrifying the people who thought they were above you. Darius leaned back. We're getting military alliance requests from factions that wouldn't return our calls last year. Apparently, they're suddenly concerned that if our small predators fight like that, our large ones might be problematic. Karen smiled faintly. Let them wonder. On the Kharak homeworld, General Scarvas had gone silent after the match, but the council confirmed his formal concession the next day. The Kharak media framed it as an honorable loss, though the private channels dripped with humiliation. For the first time in living memory, the Gorthrex had fallen, and not to another apex predator of equivalent size, but to something that barely reached its knees. 3 days later, the Galactic Council convened again. When Karen stepped onto the dais, she could feel the shift. There was no laughter this time. No smug glances or whispered jokes. Delegates leaned forward to listen. "The people of Earth," she began, "are not the largest, nor the strongest, nor the most heavily armed. But we survive, we adapt, and we don't stop, no matter the size of the challenge." Her gaze moved deliberately across the chamber until it landed on Scarvos. "That is why we are here, and that is why you should reconsider underestimating us." A ripple of low murmurs moved through the room. The message was received. Back on Earth, Ratel was returned to a specially built enclosure at a secure wildlife reserve. It was nothing like her old habitat. Reinforced fencing, motion-activated gates, multiple layers of safety protocols. The staff called her the little celebrity. Visitors were kept far from her pen, though they could watch on secure video feeds as she paced, dug, and shredded anything put in her path. "She's calmer now," one handler noted to a visiting journalist. "But if she hears certain alien vocalizations, Kharak dialect in particular, she gets agitated, starts looking for a way out." In the darker corners of the galaxy, mercenary captains and pirate leaders discussed the honey beast with grudging respect. One alien smuggler slammed his mug down in a smoky bar. "It's propaganda. No animal fights like that without augmentation." Another shook his head slowly. "I was there. It didn't fight for survival. It fought because it was angry, and it smiled when it was covered in blood." Rumors grew faster than facts. Some said Earth had dozens more honey beasts, each trained for war. Others claimed they were planning to release them in contested territories. A few whispered about something called the polar bear contingency. The human military didn't correct any of it. Karen received a private, encrypted message from a senior admiral in the Terran Defense Fleet. "You made your point. Now, the galaxy thinks twice before knocking on our door." She replied with a single line. "That was the idea." Weeks later, a council envoy visited Earth to open trade talks. During a private dinner, the envoy leaned toward Karen and asked cautiously, "Tell me, was it your most dangerous predator?" Karen set down her fork and smiled in the way only humans can, equal parts charm and warning. "Not even close." The envoy didn't ask for details. That night, under the African stars, Ratel dug a fresh tunnel in her reinforced enclosure. Her claws worked with mechanical determination, sand spraying behind her. When she was satisfied with the depth, she curled up at the bottom, half hidden, her small body coiled like a spring. Somewhere, deep in her animal mind, there was no victory or defeat. There was only the next fight. Epilogue. On a distant moon, a Kharak training officer addressed a group of fresh recruits. The holoscreen behind him played the infamous fight in full. "This," he said, pointing at the tiny mammal on the screen, "is why we no longer underestimate Terrans. This is the honey beast. Remember it. If you ever meet something like this in the field." He let the footage play to the moment where Ratel leapt for the Gorthrex's eye, freeze framing just before impact. "Run." With that, the honey beast passed from an embarrassing joke into an enduring legend, an avatar of human tenacity. And though the galaxy was vast and filled with horrors far beyond the Gorthrex, one truth became etched into every species' collective memory. Earth's predators don't have to be the biggest. They just have to be the meanest.